QME, three most important letters in a workers' comp case. That's right. Today I'm going to go over how to make sure that you're prepared for your QME evaluation. So you have a QME appointment coming up. You've never been to one, don't know what to expect. Today we're going to make that clear for you. So the number one thing to understand about QMEs is that QMEs are not treating doctors. A lot of people have a misconception that if they go to a QME, the QME is going to give them the treatment that's been denied or determine that they need something that they can't get from their own doctor or from the insurance company, and then it's going to happen immediately. If you've watched my other videos, you know that a QME is actually a neutral evaluator. And the key word here is evaluator. That means they're not actually treating you, they're just weighing in on certain issues that are disputed in a workers' comp case, whether that means permanent disability, medical treatment, temporary disability, work status, whatever the case may be. They issue a report with their opinions in it, and then it's you or your lawyer that then takes that report and uses it to get what you need in the workers' comp case. So if you've got a QME coming up, make sure you go there and you have the right state of mind to have a conversation with the QME at the evaluation about what's going on with you in your case, but not necessarily expecting that they're going to do anything there. Second tip is make sure you're polite and professional. Ultimately, QMEs have a great deal of weight in your case. Oftentimes they're viewed more favorably than a treating physician because of the significance of their reports. And so you want to make sure that you are polite and pleasant, that you're not rude to the QME or their staff, because if they don't like you or they want to, retaliate against you for whatever reason, they can put stuff into your report which affects your case and is often hard to dispute. And I've had several clients who go to QMEs and they come out afterwards, and the first thing they tell me is, hey, Bilal, I had this really bad experience with the QME, and then I get the report 30 days later, and you can read the experiences in the report. You know, the QME clearly didn't like them for whatever reason, and they took that out on them. So again, make sure you're polite, you're pleasant, make sure you're patient, try not to be rude, but hold the QME accountable. That means if there's things that seem off base, they're rude to you, they were only there for a short period of time, they didn't actually do a physical evaluation if that's what's required, or whatever the case may be, make sure you keep notes for that stuff, because ultimately if we want to dispute the QME's opinion later, that stuff could be valuable information to help us out in getting the QME kicked from the case. The third thing to understand is that the QME is a neutral evaluator, or supposed to be neutral evaluator. They're selected from a panel of doctors, and they're not supposed to represent the insurance company, and they're not supposed to represent the injured worker. They're simply there to give their medical opinion about what's going on in the case. That being said, there are clearly doctors that clearly play sides. There are more liberal and injured worker-oriented doctors. There's also doctors that are clearly on the other side who favor the insurance company, and those doctors are the ones that we want to avoid the most. If you've never been to a QME before, I think the first thing you can do is research the doctor that you're going to go see, or preferably before you pick a doctor, research all three doctors on the panel to make sure you kind of have the best shot at who's who. That being said, if you're represented by an attorney who's been doing this a long time, such as myself, I know all the doctors in the community, I know who's who, and I can pick the right doctor just based on my experience. Oftentimes, a lot of the information about the doctors and who they are and what they really are all about is not going to be found on Google. Right? A doctor could have good ratings, they could have a really great CV with a great education, but in all practicality, they're just not there for you. And so again, you want to make sure that you pick the right doctor going into the evaluation, you know who that doctor is, so you can kind of know what to expect. Next thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you review your medical records. Make sure you've kind of thought about what's going on with you. There's an old saying, and it's squeaky wheel gets the grease, meaning if you don't speak up about something, you don't complain about someone, no one's there to help you. So if you go into an evaluation talking just about your back, but your knee hurts too, you don't mention about your knee, well, no one's going to do anything about your knee, right? The QME is going to focus on your back. And so make sure you've reviewed your medical records, make sure you really think about what's going on with you. And oftentimes QMEs will send you a pre-evaluation questionnaire, which gives you the opportunity to actually put on paper where you're hurting, when you're hurting, the symptoms you're experiencing, things like that, to make sure you've documented everything that's going on with you, so that way it's addressed at the QME evaluation. Again, sometimes the QMEs won't address these things, and it's not the end of a case, but it's easier to have it done at the evaluation rather than go back later requesting another report, sending additional medical records, and trying to clean up the record that's already been made. So again, make sure that you've documented everything, make sure you review your medical records, and then lastly, be patient. You know, the QME report takes about 30 days to issue, generally speaking, sometimes longer depending upon whether the parties agree, but the QME report will come out. And once we get the report, we often have to decide what to do with it. Sometimes we have to depose the QME, sometimes we have to request a supplemental report, or sometimes we're happy with the report as is. And it's not the QME report itself that makes or breaks the case, it's what's done after that, meaning that usually we take a QME report and we use it to go to trial on disputed issues. It's the disputed issues that lead you to a QME in the first place, and so ultimately the QME is just kind of a stepping stone to actually get what you need. And I think there's this misconception that people go to the QME writes a report, and then everything changes. And oftentimes that's not the case. And so sometimes it can be a couple of months, sometimes longer, before we actually get to trial on a disputed issue, assuming things kind of go smoothly. Other times the defense may not like the report, and they may want to depose the QME, or they may want to request another report from the QME, and that can add to the time frame that you're waiting. And so if you're not getting the benefits you need, your case isn't accepted, your treatment's not being authorized, and things that we had actually gone to the QME in the first place for can still be going on despite the fact that you've gone to a QME and maybe you've got a good report. And so if you're represented by an attorney, they'll probably go over some of this stuff with you, and they certainly should have a conversation with you before the evaluation itself, just to set your expectations and give you an overview on what to expect at the evaluation itself. So if you have any further questions, make sure you check out some of our other videos.